All right, let's take a quick look at what you'll find in this section. This section goes over the basics of the English language. Okay, what is English? And this is optional. You can skip this if you want, but I do recommend you watch through it. It's not long, maybe it'll take you about an hour or so. It's going to really set the foundation for how you think about English. All right, well, welcome to this lesson. And in this lesson, we're going to just do an overview of the parts of the sentence. So this will give you an understanding of a sentence in general in the English language. Now, the first thing you should know about is that in English, a sentence is considered a complete thought. And a full sentence will always have a subject and something we call the predicate. Okay, so in English, every sentence needs these two parts, the subject and the predicate. Let's look at these examples. The dog runs down the street. Okay, here, the subject of our sentence, or who or what the sentence is about, is the dog. And the predicate will be the rest of the sentence here. So we have the subject and then the predicate. The predicate tells us what the subject is doing. So without these two parts, okay, the sentence is not a complete thought. We won't consider it a full sentence. And again, these must be in order, right? You can't say, runs down the street, the dog. In English, that is incorrect. In other languages, that may be the structure. But in English, the structure goes subject first, followed by the predicate. Now let's go into detail about these parts. First, the subject. Okay? The subject is the naming part, we can call it. The subject of the sentence is who or what the sentence is about. And the subject is going to be something called a noun. In English, a noun is any person or place or thing. So again, our example sentence, the dog runs down the street. This is our subject. The dog is a thing, right? It's an animal. This is who the sentence or what the sentence is about. The dog is the subject. Then we have the second part, which we call the predicate. Okay, the predicate is the telling part. So the predicate of the sentence tells what the subject is doing. And it will normally start with a verb and contain the object, which is also a noun. So now if we look at our example sentence, we have the predicate colored here. And you can see that the predicate is broken down into a verb and an object. The verb being runs, okay, and the object being street, or the street. So again, runs down the street is the predicate of our sentence. This is telling us what the dog is doing. So now you know how to make the basic sentence structure in English. It is just subject plus the verb plus the object in this order. Other languages will move this order around, but in English, this is the order you should follow. Subject, verb, object. And where verb and object we call the predicate. And so now we can build English sentences, just knowing about where the subject is and where the predicate is, right? So we follow this formula, subject plus predicate, okay? Just remember that. And predicate, verb plus object. The dog runs down the street. Subject, verb, object. So here's some examples. let's see if we can look at these and just kind of identify the different parts. So the cat jumps on the bed. This sentence, the cat is the subject because that is who or what it is about. Where jumps on the bed is our predicate, with jumps being the verb and the bed being the object. The mouse eats cheese. Here the mouse is the subject, right? It's who or what the sentence is about, with cheese, or eats cheese, being the predicate, where eats is the verb and cheese is the object. Then we have the bird is in the sky. Here, the bird is the subject. Is in the sky is our predicate, with is being the verb and the sky the object. So one more time, just to look at this, we have subject, predicate, subject, predicate, subject, predicate. Okay? Don't forget these words. So now we have an exercise. This is for you to try first by yourself. So I want you to maybe pause the video, take some time, look at these sentences, and figure out what is the subject and what is the predicate. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video, and then when you unpause, I'll continue by giving the answers. Okay, so hopefully you paused and figured this out on your own. Let's go through this. So the first sentence is, the man ate pizza. Okay, so we have the man. Okay? The man is our subject. This is who or what the sentence is about. Then we have ate pizza. Ate pizza is the predicate. This is what the subject did. The next sentence, Adam went to school. Adam is our subject. Went to school is our predicate. And last, we have the bear slept in the cave, with the bear being the subject, and slept in the cave being the predicate. Okay? Where slept is the verb, the cave is the object. So here we have another exercise for you to try. Go ahead and correct the sentence so that it's in the correct structure, the correct order. Okay, so you'll see that we have these words, but they're not in the correct order. So I want you to rearrange these words so that we have subject, predicate, correct order. So again, go ahead and pause the video and figure these out on your own. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too hard. Let's see what we have. The first one we have here, sinking the boat is. Okay, so in English, we don't put the information in this order. So hopefully you've started with the boat, which is our subject, and then is sinking. So the boat is sinking. This is the correct order. Subject, predicate. Next, we have a snake and eats mice. Okay? A snake is our subject, eats mice is the predicate. And the last one is hot the sun. We have the sun is hot. Okay? So the sun is hot, with the sun being the subject, is hot being the predicate. So now you can see, right? You have learned just in this little lesson about the basic structure of the English sentence. But this is the most important part, because once you know the basic structure, now all you have to do is add to this basic structure. Okay? You'll add new types of words, you can see here, and your sentences will get bigger and more complex. But the problem is, most learners try to start down here. They try to start learning very complex sentences, and then so when they have to make them on their own, they don't understand or they get confused. But if you start from here, the most basic structure and you work your way to the most complex structure, you will have no problem ordering your English sentences, making your English sentences, and this will help you speak better, listen better, write better, just overall use English better. So you can see here, right? The dog eats food. Just by adding a few words, the big dog eats food quickly. Okay, we're adding more complexity. The big dog eats food quickly under the bed. Okay, we're continuing to add. This big dog eats food quickly under that bed. We're adding more information, we're getting more specific, we're speaking better English. This big dog eats food and drinks water quickly under that bed. Okay? So now we're very specific, we're adding multiple sentences together, we're becoming a better English speaker. So this is what we'll learn in the remainder of this course. And to do this, okay, we're going to learn and understand something called the parts of speech. The parts of speech are the parts that you use to make up English sentences. Okay? So if you learn these things, you'll easily master the English language. And like I said, many students don't learn this. They just skip this part. They just try to start learning the big, complicated sentences, and they struggle. Okay? So the rest of this course, we will go over each part of this parts of speech in English, okay? Nouns, verbs, adjective, adverbs, and what I call the other words, okay? Prepositions, and finally, conjunctions. I promise, if you understand all of these, then you'll have no problem learning English. All right, for this lesson, we're going to focus on the parts of speech called nouns. Okay, so what is a noun? Well, a noun is just a person, place, or thing. Any of these are considered a noun in English. So if we have this sentence, the dog runs down the street. In this sentence, we have two nouns, dog and street. The other words are different types of words, which we will cover later. Right now we're focusing on nouns. Okay? And you'll see, if you remember, dog here is our subject, right? And street is in our predicate. Street is the object. So subject and object are nouns. Again, dog and street, these are nouns. All right, so now you have different noun categories. You have the category for person nouns. These are things like fireman, bus driver, just man, woman, boy, girl, okay? Any type of person is a noun under the person category. You have places. These are actual places. New York, America, okay? Space, outer space. These are place nouns. Things can be nouns. These are non-living things like pencil, or living things like apple, okay? Desk. Things that aren't people, they aren't places, okay? These are considered things. And you have animal nouns. Dog, bird, cat, any type of animal. You also have feelings, okay? These are nouns that you can't exactly touch, but they're considered nouns. So these are a lot of emotions. Love, hate, anger. Nouns will be singular or they will be plural in English. So if they're singular, that means you only have one of them. If plural, you have more than one. Okay? And these are the basic rules for turning a singular noun into a plural noun. For nouns here, okay, and then E or just regular letters, you add S. Some nouns, for example, nouns that end in X, you're going to add ES. Okay? And the difference between these two, it's a little bit more complicated than that, And we cover that in our grammar course if you really want to focus on that. We have cherry, okay, ends in this Y. So cherries in plural. To make it plural, you just add this IES and drop the Y. Okay, so these are the three basic endings you'll see on nouns. You also have nouns divided into common nouns, proper nouns, and even pronouns. So common nouns are like this: man and woman. Okay, these are ordinary nouns that aren't unique. They aren't special. Okay, a proper noun is something that is unique, like a name of someone. So George Washington is a proper noun. Cleopatra is a proper noun. But man, right, there are many men. We're not talking about a specific one, so it is a common noun. And pronouns, these are types of nouns that we call pronouns that take the place of the noun. So he is taking the place of George Washington. She is taking the place of Cleopatra. So now we have some more exercises. This you can try and do by yourself, hopefully. I encourage it. So go ahead and pause the video, look at the sentence. A mountain has trees, rivers, and lakes, and find the nouns, the proper nouns, common, singular, things like that. Okay, go ahead and pause the video. All right, and hopefully you got the right answer. We have mountain, which is common noun, and it is singular. We have trees, common noun and plural. Rivers, common and plural. And lakes, common and plural. Here we have another exercise. So I hope you will pause the video and try to solve this on your own first. So go ahead and pause it. Okay, and now that you're back, let's see what the answer is. Queen Elizabeth is a proper singular noun, right? Queen Elizabeth is unique. There's only one of her. So we capitalize these letters, Q and E. And then we have bench, which is a common singular noun. All right, in this lesson, we're going to focus on what a verb is in the English sentence. So what is a verb? Well, a verb is basically just used to describe some action or some state of being, some occurrence, okay? The verb is going to be the main part of your predicate, right? Remember we talked about predicate and subject. So the verb is the main part of the predicate. If you remember this sentence, the dog runs down the street, right? Runs down the street was the predicate, and the predicate starts with this verb, which is runs. It runs is the verb. This is the action that our subject, the dog, is doing. So, what kind of verbs do we have? Well, verbs can take place in different time periods. Okay, they tell us when the action happens in different time periods. So in the past time, the present time, or the future time. Okay, so we have past, present, future tense, you would call it. And there are specific rules for each, and this is not a grammar course, so I'm not going to spend too much time going over the specific rules. If you're curious about the rules, you can check out our other grammar course, our full grammar course, and we'll teach you all of the ways to use the verb tenses. But here is just a quick overview. Okay, so for the past tense, basically what you're going to do is you're going to add ed to the end of the verb. Okay, so if you see here, our verb is to talk. Okay, this is its base form. It's infinitive form, to talk. But when we change it, we add things to the end. So talked is the past tense, we add ed. Okay, for the present tense, either you'll use the verb just as it is, right? Okay, so here talk, or you'll add s or es. So either unchanged or you add s or es. We have talks or talk. And for the future, it's very easy. All you're going to do is add the word will. Okay? So will talk. And these are just the simple past, present, and future verb tense. There are other types of past, present, and future tenses, but those are a little more complicated. And right now we're just focusing on what a verb is and where it belongs in the sentence. So what kind of verbs do we have? Well, we have action verbs. Okay? These verbs have many uses, and an action verb is just something that shows an action: running, jumping, swimming, eating. It tells us what the subject is doing. So again, the sentence, the dog runs down the street. Run is an action. It is an action verb. It's what the dog is doing. And the dog is running. We have other types of verbs: helping verbs, modal verbs, and many more types of verbs. For example, helping verbs. Okay? You can see here, she is standing on the table. Here is our helping verb, right? We have two verbs here. Is a helping verb that is helping this verb standing, which is our main verb. So we can join more than one verb together like this. Okay? Modal verbs. Here we have modal verbs. These give information about possibility. He could fly in the morning. Okay, so here could is our modal verb, and fly is a main verb. It's an action verb. So again, we're joining two types of verbs together. He could fly in the morning. Okay, but again, the sentence, right? What we're focusing on is structure of sentence. He is our subject. Could fly is the beginning of our predicate. Okay, and this is our predicate here. And again, this is just a few of the forms verbs can take. Okay, if you aren't sure about verbs and the different types, I really hope that you also watch the grammar course and learn in depth about verbs. So let's look at some examples. Right, the cat licks his paws. Licks is the main verb. Right, here we go. The cat is licking his paws. Okay, so here what do you see? You see two verbs, is and licking, right? If you remember, is the helping verb, where licking will be the main verb. And when you're looking at these sentences, try to pick out information that we already learned about. For example, the subject, okay, or the object here. These are nouns, right? We learned about these. Okay, here we have the cat could lick his paws. And if you remember, could is one of those verbs we call the modal verb, and lick is our main verb. Here we have exercises. Okay, these are for you to do first. So take what we learned in this lesson, read the sentence, and figure out if you see a verb, okay, if you can identify what type of verb it is, go ahead and pause the video. All right, so hopefully you got 8 is the main verb. Here we have the bear could be in the cave. So again, I want you to pause the video, try to figure out what is the verb in this sentence, or verbs if there's more than one. And here we have could be, where could is one of those modal verbs, and be is going to be our main verb. Here we have, she is dancing on the table. Okay, so this is for you to figure out, so go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure out what the verb is. Okay, and we have is dancing. So is one of those helping verbs, while dancing is going to be our main verb. In this lesson, we'll take a look at linking and transitive verbs so that we can better understand the object of our sentence. So we learned, right, that an English sentence has a subject, a verb, and then an object. Now, I wish it was that easy, but it's not quite that simple, okay? In the beginning of this course, I told you subject, verb, object, just to introduce to you the main way that we form sentences. But when we get more advanced, really that object isn't always an object like we think it is. So there are sentences that can be made without an object, okay? Or there are sentences that have more than one object, or there are sentences where it looks like an object, but actually we don't consider it an object. So in this lesson, we're going to go over those different types. To understand this, we will focus mainly on 3 different types of sentences. And the sentence is different due to the way we use the verb. So these 3 types of verbs are transitive verb, okay? And transitive verb can be broken down into the monotransitive verb and ditransitive verb. We'll go look at intransitive verbs and finally linking verbs. So, transitive verbs. These are the sentences that we started talking about, okay? In the beginning, I said all sentences have a subject, verb, and object. Now, while that maybe wasn't 100% true, I said it because it's best to think in that way. So, when we think about a sentence that always has a subject, verb, and object, these are sentences that are using a verb in the transitive verb format, okay? And the transitive verbs can be broken into 2 categories. The monotransitive sentences, which are subject, verb, object, okay? And then the ditransitive sentences, which are subject, verb, indirect object, and then direct object. So here we actually have 2 objects. If we look at these in terms of real sentences, we can look at these following examples. So the monotransitive sentences, okay, these are very easy to understand. Jeff kicked the ball. Here, Jeff is our subject, the verb is kicked, and the object is ball. Okay? Here, we have a true object. Why? Because the action from the verb is being transferred from the subject to the object. So Jeff kicked the ball. Okay, so these are all related. There's a connection. The ditransitive sentences, okay, will have this subject, verb, indirect object, and finally direct object. So you see here, Jeff gave Dan the cake. So here we have Jeff is our subject, our verb is gave, okay? The indirect object is Dan, and the direct object is the cake. So in this sentence, if we took out our indirect object, we would still have a monotransitive sentence, right? Jeff gave the cake. So that's how we know the cake is our direct object. The cake is receiving the action. And who is the action going to, right? Who did Jeff give the cake to? Well, he gave it to Dan. So that is our indirect object. So a little bit more on direct and indirect objects, but direct objects are just the nouns or pronouns that are receiving the action, okay? While the indirect objects are the nouns or pronouns affected by the action. So think of it this way. Indirect objects are the recipients of the direct object. And the indirect object is always going to answer that question, from whom, okay, or to whom, for whom, or for what. So again, now we can look at our examples. Jeff gave Dan the cake. So Jeff, our subject, the verb is gave, okay? The cake is receiving the action, gave, right? The cake is being given. Who is affected by this action though? Well, Dan is affected by it, right? Dan is getting this cake. So the indirect object, Dan, is the recipient of the direct object, the cake. Okay? We have another sentence here. Max pitched Alice the baseball. So again, Max, okay, subject. Pitched is our verb. What did Max pitch? Well, he pitched the baseball. So that is the thing that is receiving the action. But who was affected by this action? Well, Alice was affected. So Alice is our indirect object. So these are these ditransitive sentences. They have two objects actually. Okay, so now we're moving on to a different sentence type, and here we're going to start breaking the rule that we talked about at the beginning of the course. These are sentences that don't actually have a real object. Okay, now in the beginning of the course, I used some of these sentences and said they did have an object, but that was just to simplify the introduction of this course. Now we're going to actually look at what these sentences have and what they don't have. So these intransitive verbs have no real object. That means that their action is not transferred from a subject to an object. Okay? It's not transferred from a subject to an object. So these intransitive verbs will have this following structure. We'll have a subject plus a verb. Okay? Many times that's it, just the subject and verb. And that is fine. That can be considered a complete sentence. Sometimes though, you'll have these extra words, this prepositional phrase at the end. So if we look at these examples here, she cried, okay, that's an intransitive sentence. Even though it has no object, it's fine because the way we're using the verb, okay? Being used in an intransitive way. She cried. We can also add more information, and there's still not an object. She cried at home. Okay? At home is a prepositional phrase. It is not the object, actually, because the home is not receiving the crying, right? At home is just where she cried. So this isn't considered an object. And again, we can follow these intransitive verbs with other words, and they're not the object. They just tell us things like how, where, or when, okay? But they're not really the object. So, he slept after dinner. We could end the sentence with just, he slept, and that would be an intransitive sentence. But after dinner is not our object, right? Dinner is not receiving the sleeping. After dinner is just telling us when. Okay, when did he sleep? He slept after dinner. Here, our car blew up down the street. Right? Our car is the subject. Blew up is the verb. Okay? But down the street is just a prepositional phrase, right? It is not an actual true object. And the last type of sentence we'll talk about, okay, is a linking verb sentence. And these sentences don't have an object. They have something different called a subject complement. So the linking verbs use a verb that link two parts of a sentence, and those two parts are the subject, okay, and the subject complement. And the subject complement would be a noun or some type of adjective. So here is the basic structure: subject, verb, subject complement. And here's our example sentence: Eric is a doctor, right? So here we're using a linking verb. There's no action. So we're not putting any action on this word here, a doctor, right? Eric is a doctor. This is a linking verb sentence. Okay, now in this lesson, we're going to cover a few types of words in the English sentence, mainly adjectives and adverbs, and then we'll go over a few other types that are equally as important. So, what are these other words? Okay, we went over the main ones. We went over nouns and verbs. Those are the most important parts of a sentence, right? You can make a sentence basically with just noun and a verb. Dog runs street, right? That's enough information. I can understand what they're talking about. Obviously, this isn't a full English sentence, but these nouns and the verb give me most of the information. But these other words are what really adds that extra touch, right? It's what fills the sentence out so we know exactly what is going on. So now that we have these other words added in, let's see. The big dog runs down the street quickly. Okay, so now I know the size of the dog, I know where it's running on the street, and I know how it's running. Okay, so these extra words are very important. And these extra words are things called adverbs, adjectives, determiners. Okay, they give more information. Let's go over these a little bit. The first ones I want to cover are adjectives and adverbs. Okay, these are going to add detail to nouns and verbs. The first one, adjectives, these add or describe a noun. Okay, they add detail to the noun. So let's look at here. We have this basic sentence: the dog runs down the street. Okay, that's fine. That's a good sentence. But I don't know what the dog looks like. I don't know anything about the dog. I don't know anything about the street. So we can add adjectives to describe these things. The brown dog runs down the old street, right? You see how this is a little better? Now I can picture it in my head. Oh, it's a brown dog. It's running down this old street. Okay, so this is how you become a better writer or even a better speaker. Okay? You can help paint pictures in the head of the person you're talking to. The other one was adverbs, and these describe a verb. Okay, so you have adjectives for nouns and adverbs for verbs. So we have our basic sentence: the dog runs down the street, and we change this by adding an adverb here: the dog runs quickly down the street. Now we have this adverb here, quickly, and it's telling us how the dog is running. Okay, so now I know the dog is running fast. And we can add even more detail with other types of words called determiners. And we have different types of determiners, but mainly they're going to tell us things like amount, so how many of them, okay, maybe the time or the location. So one of these is articles. Okay, articles in English, very important. If you want to sound like a native English speaker or someone who grew up speaking English, you need to make sure you are using articles. The number one sign that someone is not a native English speaker is they don't use articles when they speak. It's dead giveaway every time. Articles are always used. Okay, so articles show specificity. So they show that it's a specific thing. And the articles we have in English are a, an, and the. Okay? So we have the dog runs down the street, or a dog runs down a street. Maybe to someone who hasn't spoken English very long, this might be the same, but actually it's a little different. When I say the dog runs down the street, it's more specific, right? The dog. We're talking about a specific dog. The dog is running down the street. Okay? Specific. But if I say a dog runs down a street, to me, that sounds like just any dog is running down any street. Okay? Not specific. Other types of determiners are called demonstratives. Okay? Demonstratives. This tells us which objects are being talked about. So we have this, that, these, and those. So this ball is red. That ball is blue. Okay, so this and that are telling us which objects we're talking about. So imagine pointing. This ball is red, okay, close to me. Or that ball is blue, the one over there. We also have quantifiers. Quantifiers tell us how much or how many. So we have some, many, a lot of, few. These are all quantifiers. Many people eat meat, but some do not. Okay, so many and some, these are telling us how many, right? How many people? Many people. Okay? How many do not? Some do not. We have distributives. Okay, and these are used to talk about objects in a group. So every student will take the test. Now we're talking about all of the students. And each student will have different questions. So each student means this student, this student, this student, right? One by one by one by one. So let's go over some example sentences, see if we can point out some of these new parts of speech that we learned. So we have the blue sky had gray clouds. Okay, so we have blue and gray. These are going to be adjectives, right? Blue is an adjective describing sky, the blue sky. Gray is an adjective describing clouds. And the is an article for sky. The next sentence, the child slowly finished his homework. Here we have slowly, which is an adverb describing finished, and the, which is an article for child. An orange is a fruit. Here we have un and a, which are both articles. Un for an orange. Okay, if the noun makes a vowel sound at the beginning, we use un. If not, we use a. The next sentence, this cat is mine, those cat are yours. Okay, here we're using demonstratives. We have this and those. Next we have many people will take the test, few will pass. Here we're using quantifiers, many and few. And last we have every animal is a living thing. Okay, so every is a distributive, while a or a is an article. Okay, so take some time, look over this, get familiar with where these new terms are in the sentences. Okay, where is the structure? How do we place these things in the sentence? Now we have some exercises. These are for you to do. So please pause the video, read the sentence, try to find some of those new words that we learned about in this lesson. Okay, go ahead and pause it now. All right, so hopefully that wasn't too difficult. Let's see what we have. Our sentence is, each day of the week brings a fun experience. In this sentence, you can find each, which is a distributive, the, which is an article, okay, the week, and fun, which is an adjective, right? It's a fun experience. Here we have another exercise. Go ahead and pause the video, and we will wait until you unpause to give the answer. Okay, and here we have this, which is a demonstrative for this bear. We have long for long legs, okay, describing legs, an adjective. And we have quickly, which is an adverb describing how they walk. Okay, they walk quickly. So another exercise for you. Please pause the video and try to solve it on your own. Welcome back. The answer is many, which is a quantifier, and every, which is a distributive. Okay, many people every year. All right, now in this lesson, we're going to talk about the part of speech called prepositions. So what are prepositions? Well, they are words that show the relationship between other words. So they give us information about the time or the location or the movement of these words. So let's look at our examples here. The first one reads, the dog runs down the street. Okay. The second one reads, the dog runs on the street. So here, down and on are what we call prepositions. Okay. They're giving us information about the relationship between the dog, okay, the dog running, and the street. So how is the dog running on the street? It's running down the street. Or how is the dog running with the street? It's running on the street. Okay? So this adds extra information about the relationship between our subject and our object. Now, a prepositional phrase is when we have the preposition and we include it with the object. Okay? So before we read, the dog runs down the street. Okay? If I asked you what is the prepositional phrase, you would tell me the preposition and the object. So it would be down the street. Whereas our other example, the dog runs on the street, if I asked for the prepositional phrase, it would be on the street. Okay, so the prepositional phrase is just the object plus the preposition. Now, what types of prepositions do we have? We have time prepositions. These tell us when something is happening, right? I start school in September. So school starts in September. It's when. We have place prepositions. These tell us where. She jumped on the table. Okay? Movement. Tell us how. He walks to work. Okay? So in, to, on, these are very common prepositions, okay? But there are many more. So to really understand prepositions, you have to study many more lessons about them. But again, this is just a parts of speech lesson to show you where in the sentence we use them. So here you can see some examples of other prepositions. So for time prepositions, we have on, from, during, by. For movement prepositions, into, toward, down, along. For location, we have above, over, under, between. So let's look at some examples together. The first one, I swim at night. So in this sentence, at is our preposition. Okay? It's a time preposition. So when do they swim? At night. The next sentence, put the shoes in the box. For here, we have in is our preposition. So where do they put the shoes? In the box. In the next sentence, lean the box towards the wall. Here, we have towards. So how do they lean the box? They lean it towards the wall. Now these are exercises. These are for you to do without me. So please pause the video, read the sentences, and figure out where are the prepositions, and if you can, think about what type of preposition do you think it is? Is it telling us how, where, when? So go ahead and pause the video. Okay, for the first one, we have on. So my birthday is on Friday. When is your birthday? It's on Friday. The next one, her house is on the first street. On is the preposition. It's a place preposition. So where is her house? It's on First Street. And then we have he is driving to the store. So how is he driving? To the store. Okay, so to is our movement preposition. All right, in this lesson, we'll talk about conjunctions. So what are conjunctions? A conjunction is just a word that we use to connect a clause, which is like a semi-sentence, part of a sentence, or to use to connect two sentences. So our example here, we have two sentences. I have a dog, I have a cat. Okay, it's fine. These are good sentences, but to be more advanced in English, we want to make this longer into one big sentence. So we use something called a conjunction. So and is a conjunction. It joins these two sentences. Now we have, I have a dog and a cat. So we are writing a better sentence, more complex, and we're taking out information that we don't need. Okay, so here we have I have. We just need it once. Now in English, there are three main types of conjunctions. We have coordinating conjunctions. Okay, these are conjunctions that join words and phrases that are similar. We have subordinating conjunctions. These ones will show a relationship between two situations. And then we have correlative conjunctions. And these are pairs of conjunctions that join words or phrases that are similar. So let's look at what these are exactly. All right, so here we have coordinating conjunctions. And remember, coordinating conjunctions, they join words and phrases that are similar. So here we have I like dogs, I like cats, right? We have I like, okay? So these sentences are similar, but we can use a coordinating conjunction to make it I like dogs and cats. And the conjunctions, we can easily remember what they are by this term here, fanboys, where each letter stands for one of the conjunctions. So F is for, A is for and, N is for nor, B is for but, O is for or, Y is for yet, and S is for so. Now, if these sentences were longer, then we would have to put a comma here before the coordinating conjunction. So when you're dealing with longer sentences, more full-size sentences, remember, you need a comma before any coordinating conjunction. Now here we have subordinating conjunctions. These conjunctions are used to show a relationship between two situations. So you'll see we have these two sentences here. It was hot outside. The ice cream melted. There is a relationship between these two sentences. So we can use a subordinating conjunction. And you'll see there's two ways to do it. The first way is the ice cream melted since it was hot outside. You'll see here we have no comma before the subordinating conjunction. So when the subordinating conjunction is in the middle of the sentence, we don't need a comma. However, if we take that subordinating conjunction and use it at the beginning of the sentence, then we do need a comma in the middle here when we add the second sentence. And below here you can see there are quite a few subordinating conjunctions, and you'll get to learn them the more you use them. Next we have our correlative conjunctions. Okay, Now, correlative conjunctions are actually a pair of conjunctions that we use to join words or phrases that are similar. So here we have the two sentences, I don't like pizza, I don't like pasta. Okay, so now we're talking about two separate things that they don't like. We can use a correlative conjunction. I like neither pizza nor pasta. Okay, so here is our correlative conjunction. And some common correlative conjunctions are either or, neither nor, not only, but also. Okay, so these have to be used in pairs, together. So here we have some examples. We'll do these together. Okay, we're going to use some of these conjunctions and join these sentences together. So our first one, I want chicken, I want fish. We're going to use either or. Okay, so to change this sentence, we write, I want either chicken or fish. So you can see we took out this extra I want, right, and put either here before chicken and or before fish. Next we have, I don't like blue, I like red. So for this sentence, we have, I don't like blue, comma, but I like red. And our last sentence, I ate carrots, I got sick. Okay. Here, we have I ate carrots, I got sick. Now, the one we have to use is because. If I just put because here, I ate carrots because I got sick, that has a different meaning and that doesn't make much sense. But if we put it this way, I got sick because I ate carrots, that makes a little bit more sense. So now we have some exercises for you to try by yourself. Go ahead and pause the video. Try to make the sentence on your own without any help. And then when you're ready, unpause the video and I will go over the answer. So the first one, we have not only but also. Our new sentence will be, they not only play soccer, but also play baseball. The next sentence, it rained today, I got wet. It rained today, so I got wet. And the last one, the dog jumps, the dog runs. We get, the dog jumps and runs.